Okay, by recording this meeting, Annika, we can preserve your words of wisdom that you share with us. So now I can welcome you officially, and when we share this on YouTube, we'll start right at this point. So all the prior stuff won't be included. The first order of business is to vote on a bylaws revision. Every active member of Sustainable Rossmoor was given a copy of the revised bylaws. And uh, to keep it simple, we just like to get a vote of the bylaws. We assume that if you're interested, you have read them. And if you're not, you have not. I will tell you, I got emails and subsequent discussions with 3 people who read it and had some questions. So I answered those questions to their satisfaction. Um, so I'm going to put up for a vote that we accept. And if you're an active member, you can vote. If you're not an active member, we prefer if you don't vote. But we're not going to check your credentials at this point. So all those who are in favor of the bylaws revisions, please raise your hand. Thank you. Okay, you can put it down. All those who are opposed to the revisions, please raise your hand. Thank you. No, so it passes
No,
unanimously.
yeah,
And the fact that about half of you raised your hands tells me that the Rossmoor News is effective in communicating this and that this topic is of broad interest. I haven't taken account right now. I'm guessing we have about 40 in the room. Okay, the next thing is the, oh, I'm sorry, before I go there. Uh, part of part of the making the hybrid work is the cooperation of the people in the room, affectionately known as roomers, and the people online, affectionately known as Zoomers. So in order for this to work, we need your cooperation. The roomers, before, if there's a question, if you're called on to ask a question, in order for the Zoomers to hear it, you have to speak into a microphone. Now, all the microphones are being fed through a device, so any microphone will do. And there are 1, 2, 3 microphones. Oh, there's 4 here. So any of them should work. Um, the other thing is that when possible, use this microphone because then the people online will also be able to see you. And that's only fair. Okay, for Zoomers, please mute yourself during the during the program except for the speaker. So, um, and Brad right now is operating as Zoom host, and his job, or I'll take his job over once Annika starts talking, would be to mute you if if you haven't muted yourself. Um, and if you have a question, to place the question in chat preferably, but you can raise your hand electronically as well. And Annika will let us know whether she wants to save questions for the end or whether she wants to answer them at the time. Okay, so we just did the bylaws revisions. I want to thank the bylaws committee for for working on this, and that was Dave Casey, myself, and Brad Waite. Now, the reason why we had the bylaws revisions first was so that one of these 3 nominees could be placed on the ballot. And the 3 nominees, and we have 6 directors. The way that the way that we operate at Sustainable Rossmoor is that we have 6 elected directors. 3 are elected every year, and at between the November and December meeting, uh, they they will caucus and decide who will be president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. And I know of a number of clubs that work that way. It works fine. If you're not used to that, it works. um, so the 3 nominees are, and Amanda Casey and Pam Giarrizzo. Okay, and Margot Thielander. And I see Amanda and Pam are here, and Margot, you might be online, but since I have these slides up, I can't tell. Okay, you are online. Good. Um, 2 weeks ago, we sent out the notice of in compliance with the bylaws. We sent out this slate of nominees as well as bios on each one. I'm not going to take the time now to have you go through it because we do have a pretty packed program. I do want to thank Marcia, and Marcia, I see that you're here, and so
Yeah.
I should have had you do this instead of me.
That's
and
okay. Very quickly, I don't want to take, it is my pleasure and honor to have these three wonderful women be part of our Sustainable Rossmoor. Chairing the nominating committee this year was really terrific because we have these three great people. If you would like to know more about them, we have them. Just quickly, Amanda Casey has lived here since 2019, and she's very interested in a whole bunch of wonderful things, particularly about vegan. Pam moved here in 2019 and was part of the state government and is in charge of the our legislative committee and also does the newsletter. And Margaret moved here. Margot moved here in 2022, and is very interested in doing a bunch of things as well. So I'm very excited to present this slate.
Okay, thank you. The next step would be to vote them in or not. And so I will put them together as a slate. Since we have three nominees and we have 3 slots, we can do this by voice. Okay. And so I'm by voice vote or by hand vote. So I'm going to ask you, active members only, please, if you approve this slate of nominees, please raise your hand at this time. Okay, you can put them down. If you're opposed to any of these nominees being a director, please raise your hand. And thank you. And so then unanimously, you 3 are now elected directors. So congratulations. And want to thank again Marcia McLean, who chaired the nominating committee. And let's see. Okay. Yes. Okay. Volume is too low. So I believe
Okay. So I need to get rid of the this part of the. Perfect.
okay. I'm going to hide this as well. Okay.
Okay, terrific. Real quickly, I just want to go through the treasurer's report here. Basically, we started to receive a number of renewed memberships, which I'll talk about in a minute, and also some small number of donations during the film performances. A small amount of operations money, mostly I think there were some new checks we had to buy and some other things. And so the total, we're back at about $6,500 in the bank. And okay, here we go. And membership, we have 159 members currently active. 39 have joined us this year during 2023, and we've already had 50 who have renewed so far for 2024. And if you haven't renewed, you will be getting an email, an automated email that says, please renew. You can do so by just going to the website, sustainablerossmoor.org, and trying to log in. If you haven't renewed in and you have been a member, when you log in, it'll automatically say, hi, let's get your money. And if you want to join, you can also, if you're not a member already, you can go to sustainablerossmoor.org, click on the Join Us that shows up there, or leave us a $20 check in our box in Gateway in the main admin building. Okay, with that, I will move on.
Thank you, Adrian. Now, as part of Sustainable Rossmoor's practice of education and spreading sustainable practices, it's a time for anybody who wants to share a sustainable practice with the group. And this is just, it benefits everyone. If you've, I mean, for seasoned members, if it's something new that you're doing, but people who are not typically here, you might have sustainable practice you want to share. And we do that just to help all of us live more sustainably. So I invite anybody who has a sustainable practice they want to share to raise their hand or come to a microphone and share. I know we're springing it. You have to get out of the mind of receiving information to the mind of thinking what it is that you want to share. Okay. Oh, Pam, come on up here.
Hi, I'm Pam Girizzo. I recently heard about something called a repair cafe, and apparently we have them in the United States, but mostly they're all over the world. And what they are is a community event where if you've got a broken item, you can go to the repair cafe and there will be repair coaches who will help you fix it. I guess small appliances, bicycles, things that need to be mended, things like that. So I really liked the idea, and I went Sunday to one in Palo Alto, which is the oldest one in the United States, and it was quite an operation. They had 43 volunteers working that day to fix things. They probably had at least 100 people coming and bringing things in, although the woman who runs it tells me that they've had as many as 200 customers come. It's a quarterly event. And everybody seemed to be having a great time. They had an indoor place where people were repairing things, an outdoor place, and then a separate bicycle repair area. Food for volunteers, food for people who were waiting for their item to come, for their name to be called. And it's they've got two rules. The repairs are free, and it's not a drop-off service. You sit there with the repair coach while they work on your item, and that helps enable you to fix it the next time something needs to be done. So anyhow, I thought it was a fabulous idea, and I've written up a proposal to see if we can get one in Contra Costa. So if anyone else is interested in looking at the idea, volunteering, anything like that, I'd love to talk to you.
Thank you, Pam. Anybody else have something like to share before we start our featured presentation? Okay, well, then let me invite Brad to come up. Let's see, I'm going to go down here. You can just do the slides. Okay, well, okay.
Good evening. My name is Brad Wade, as Barry said. I'd like to introduce you all to our featured speaker this evening, Annika Osborn. She'll be on Zoom, as you probably saw. Annika is the Director of Program Services and Community Outreach for Cool the Earth, which is a nonprofit in Marin. And I'm sure that Annika can explain exactly what that nonprofit does and how we can help them and they can help us better than I can. So I think at this point, if Annika, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Great. Okay, so you can share your slides with us anytime you want to.
Oh, I thought the slides were part of the
Oh, there. I'm sorry.
presentation. Perfect. Okay. Well, going back to the last one, it's okay. Thank you so much for joining to learn how you can electrify your ride. I think I may have been presenting at your last year's annual meeting because I did a presentation. I know I've done another presentation for Rossmoor. Anyway, I'm Annika Osborn. I'm with Cool the Earth. We're an environmental nonprofit with a mission to reduce carbon emissions and air pollution. And while we are big fans of walking, biking, public transportation, and carpooling, with our Ride and Drive Clean collaboration, we work to advance the adoption of electric vehicles, and which we include EVs and e-bikes, in a fair and just marketplace. I want to thank MCE for sponsoring this webinar. And just briefly, here are a few of the topics that we're going to cover. We'll be going over lots of information, but not to worry. I am sure Sustainable Rossmoor will share this presentation with anybody who would like it. I'm not sure if you're doing a recording, but if so, feel free to record to share that as well. So if any questions come up, please feel free to raise your hand, or I can answer the question as it comes up, especially some of these more technical incentives questions. If you have a question right on that slide, I'm happy to take that then. Otherwise, we will have a little Q&A at the end. So either way works for me. Next, please. Thank you. So there are many benefits to going electric. I'll just talk really briefly about them. In California, our passenger vehicles are the single largest source of GHG emissions, representing up to 50% of our individual carbon footprint. So when we switch from a gas car to an EV and plug into clean energy like we can do in the Bay Area, where you are in Rossmoor, you have MCE Clean Energy. It has an option for 60% renewables or 100% renewables. So this is really great. We're taking really impactful climate action by reducing our carbon emissions and air pollution, both which disproportionately impact our priority communities. So in addition to reducing our impact on the planet, there's no sacrifice when we switch to going electric. We can save time, money, and improve our driving experience with an EV. And an EV can even help with backup power when there's a power outage. Next. So although some early EV drivers, some of you are probably in this room tonight, may have paid a little bit of a higher premium for electric cars, today's EV drivers often save money. And some reasons are that it costs much less to fuel an electric car. Fueling a gas car can be 2 to 5 times more expensive than fueling an EV, depending upon where and when you charge it. And electricity prices tend to be more stable than gas prices, as we've seen in the last few years. In addition, maintenance costs are 40% lower for EVs. It's basically adding windshield wiper fluid and rotating your tires. And then there are the incentives that are available for up to $7,500, which can bring down the cost of purchasing or leasing an EV. Next. So there are currently 4 types of incentives that can save you up to $7,500 when you buy an EV. There are additional grants and rebates that are available for both new and used cars for people who qualify. And I actually added a few slides about those to this presentation because I think some of you may qualify. So the federal tax credit was revamped last year. It's now called the Clean Vehicle Credit. There are some new qualifications for this tax credit, and new this year, there is a tax credit for used EVs. If you'd like to install a charger at home, there's also a home charging tax credit up to $1,000, 30% of the cost of the install and the hardware. Depending upon where you live and who provides your electricity, there may be additional utility and CCA incentives. PG&E just came out with a pre-owned EV rebate for $1,000 and up to $4,000 if your income qualifies. And MCE has a new instant EV rebate, $3,500 for new and $2,000 for pre-owned. So if you're thinking about a pre-owned EV, you can stack those two rebates and get $6,000 off if your income qualifies. Both of the full $4,000 for the PG&E incentive and the MCE pre-owned rebate are both income qualifying. And then we also have EV discount campaigns. So that's something that my organization organizes, Ride and Drive Clean. Thank you. And so we currently have one going on, and I'll be sharing some information about that later. We partner with Cartelligent to do EV discount campaigns. Cartelligent is a car concierge service, a very popular and well-liked, well-established concierge service. So they're able to negotiate discounts with a variety of dealers so they can get special pricing on certain EVs at certain times. We've been trying to do 4 a year, like a quarterly EV discount campaign. And the one that we have going now is going through November. There are some great savings calculators that you can use to check to see exactly what you qualify for. So you can put in your income and you can put in your zip code and find out exactly what, which incentives are available for you. Okay, next, I just want to see if there's something in the chat that I need to answer. No. Okay, great. So because of this revamp of the federal tax credit, these are the vehicles that currently qualify for purchase for the tax credit and the amount that they qualify for. Most are for $7,500, some are for $3,750. The way they did it this new time around here is that there are some battery requirements, and so the manufacturers that fulfill both battery requirements get the full $7,500, while the others get $3,750 if they only fulfill one of the battery requirements. And I will note that this is changing, just real quickly. It is changing because it might change next year because the way they put this federal tax credit together, it's going to be available for 10 years. So we're near completion for the first year. So for the next 9 years, every year, there's going to be some stricter requirements for in order for these vehicles to qualify for the federal tax credit, mostly related to the battery, where the battery is made, and where the rare earth minerals that are in the batteries are sourced from. Okay, next slide, please. So while the clean vehicle tax credit does have a lot of restrictions now, there may be a way around all of these requirements. So if you lease an EV, the dealership may pass on a $7,500 lease credit when they figure out your payments. There are fewer restrictions like no income cap, and the EV can be manufactured in other countries. You do want to check with Cartelligent or a local dealer to make sure this is available if you plan to lease an EV. It's not available on all of them, but for many it is available. A little more information about the rebate for the federal tax credit for the pre-owned EVs. So it's 30% of the sale price up to a $4,000 max, and that can be stacked with the PG&E rebate and the MC&E rebate if your income qualifies. The vehicle price cap is, that's pretty significant. So that could be $10,000 off in rebates. $25,000 is the vehicle price cap. About a year ago, it was hard to find an EV less than $25,000, but the prices of EVs in general have come down, and the price of used EVs has come down a bit as well. You do have to purchase from a licensed dealer, so you can't buy one from a friend or from Craigslist. And then these are the income limits. They are a little bit more, they are somewhat stringent, but they do align with some of the other income qualifying incentives. And then starting in 2024, the consumer can ask the dealer to take the tax credit and they will pass it on to the buyer or lessor at the point of sale as a rebate, which will be super helpful for the down payment. We don't know really how that's going to work, but I have heard that if the person who gets this tax credit in advance doesn't really qualify for, in terms of the income limits on the tax credit, then they may still have to pay it back when they file their taxes. So they're still kind of informing us on how that's going to work. So that'll be interesting. So I'm just going to focus in on a couple of these income qualifying rebates that are available. Next slide, please. So a little more info on the MCE EV instant rebates. As I mentioned, $3,500 for a new EV and $2,000 for a pre-owned EV. These are for plug-in hybrids and fully electric EVs. You do have to go to a participating dealership to get this credit. And MC has been compiling a list of dealerships, and Cartelligent is actually helping with that. So hopefully the cars that you're getting through Cartelligent will qualify. They can be stackable, as we've talked about before. And yeah, we really want to increase EV adoption by lowering the cost and providing EV education to MCE customers. MCE can also help. They offer consultations. So if as you may have noticed, there are a variety of sources for different rebates and incentives. Some you have to get before you get the EV, others you get after. And so it can get a little complicated, but MCE does offer some consultation, and they can help walk you through all the incentives that you qualify for, which is really nice. The next one is please, next slide, please. If you were to go to the website for the Drive Clean Assistance Program, it will say that it is full for the year. They've already spent all their money. But I am in close contact with the program director, and he promises me that this is coming back in one shape or form. It might not be called the Drive Clean Assistance Program next year, but it is coming back. This is a grant program, and you do have to apply for this before getting your EV. So you want to have that grant in hand before you go to the dealership and buy that EV. This can be used for new or used. Next. So if you have a car that's 2005 or older, Clean Cars for All is an opportunity for you to exchange your older car for a $9,500 or up to $9,500 grant to purchase a new or used EV. You'll notice I have some Spanish on these slides. I was just doing a presentation, a bilingual presentation. So some of you can enjoy the Spanish if that pertains to you. So this is one, again, yeah, you want to have that grant in hand. And this is one that you have to turn in your car. They're trying to get those older cars off the road and get you into an EV. So really nice program there. And next, a little more, just, want to call out the PG&E used EV rebate. It's $1,000 is the standard rebate that anybody qualifies for, and it's up to $4,000 based on your income. Next, then I want to talk a little bit about our EV discount campaign that we have going through November. Currently, we have these 4 cars on discount. I know it's very hard to read this. Perhaps, you know what, I can actually put this into the chat right now. Let me find the chat on my screen so you can kind of explore this. Let's see. On your own. You can see this a little bit bigger on your screen. So these are 4 EVs that are on part of our discount campaign with really great pricing through the end of the month. I would say that Volkswagen ID4, it's available. The first 3 cars are available only, like the special pricing is available, really, really great savings for leasing. Those 3 cars don't qualify for the federal tax credit, but the Volkswagen ID4 does for up to $7,500. They have really good lease pricing as well as great and stackable purchase pricing as well. So we're really excited about this. And next slide, please. The way to get started is to sign up on our EV discount campaign page. You have to fill out this form and let us know if you're interested now or later for another EV discount campaign and submit it. And then Cartelligent will get back to you in within 48 hours, of a business day. They don't always work on the weekends, but you're not required, even if you sign up and you can have them look into an EV that you're interested in. There's no obligation at all, so don't feel there's no risk really to doing this. You can always just talk to one of their sales associates and see if something works out for you. One thing that's nice, if you are interested in one of these 4 cars, they waive their concierge fee, which is typically $6,000. So, if you buy another EV from Cartelligent, they'll give you a little discount, so they'll take $100 off, but this is really nice because you don't have to pay that at all. So now is the time. It's really a great advantage to buy an EV during our EV discount campaign. Perfect. Great. So next. So this year in California, a quarter of new car purchases are EVs. And with so many models available and coming, I'm sure you can understand why. So we're going to kick it off with a little bit of a showcase of some EVs. I don't have, this is just a small sampling of EVs that are available, but, there are many more out there, but these are some goodies that I wanted to share with you. So in this EV showcase, the prices listed are the base MSRP. I've starred the ones that qualify for the federal clean vehicle credit. But, just keep in mind, there are additional rebates on some of these EVs. So the Bolt is the best deal. Oh, next slide, please. The Bolt is the best deal around. It's super fun and peppy to drive. I know several people at Rossmoor have Chevy Bolt. I believe Carol Weed has one, if you know who she is, but probably some other folks as well. In 2017, it was the first long-range EV that came to market under $40,000, and the pricing has come down significantly. The Bolt EUV model is similar. It has a little more space in the back seat, a little more cargo space as well. They threatened us by saying that they were going to cancel the Chevy Bolt, and I think enough people protested that they decided to at least manufacture more for the 2024 season of cars. Moving on to the next slide. So here are some popular models that you've most likely seen around. The Hyundai Kona and the Kia Niro are great crossovers. The Nissan Leaf Plus model offers higher range at a little more cost. Incidentally, this year, the average price of a new gas car or a new car in the US is $48,000. So these come in really well below the price, and that Nissan Leaf, couple things, wait, sorry, 1 second back. That Nissan Leaf does qualify for $3,750 on the federal tax credit. And the Kia Niro EV, this in the newer models here, they have bidirectional battery. So you can actually charge appliances like your refrigerator off of the battery of this EV, which is really cool. I'll talk a little more about that soon. Next, please. Then there's Tesla. And we like to separate the CEO from the technology. Tesla is several years in advance with their technology.
Annika,
Yes.
we have lost the video right now. So let's just give us a moment to see if we can get it back here.
Sure, no problem. Are we back in business?
No, unfortunately, no. Well, I could try using the other computer.
Annika, this is
Yes.
Carol. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We have about 40 people here in the theater. Do you want to take a question from somebody while we're waiting for
Yes,
the?
absolutely. I'm happy to.
Okay.
Is there something in the chat? Oh, Gary says he has video. I don't know. Maybe that's
Answer
just
the question in the chat, and I'm walking over to the.
I don't see any questions in the chat, actually,
May
unfortunately.
I ask a question?
Yes, please.
I would like to know, is there something like a Consumer Reports out there that compares the different electric vehicles, features, price, etc.?
Yes, there's actually a really great Bloomberg article that I really like. Let me see if I can find it. Electric vehicles. So I mean, since this is an environmental forum here, Bloomberg, let's see if I can find this article. Yes, Bloomberg came out, I'll drop it in the chat, but Bloomberg came out with a green Bloomberg Green's electric car guide. So let me throw this in the chat. I like it because it shows which EVs are the most efficient EVs, which is something that, it's interesting with EVs. A lot of people in the United States are interested in buying large SUVs and trucks and like gas guzzling cars. And, it's great if you get those in the electric version because you're reducing emissions greatly. But truly, we want the smaller our cars or the more efficient our cars are, the better it is for the environment. So I like this article just for this reason. I don't know if it's behind some sort of, it seems like I've been able to get this article many times before, but now they're asking for money. I don't know. For Bloomberg, maybe I just have to sign in, but it's interesting because it shows, it does compare the cars. It talks also about like the speed of charging, which is quite useful if you're on a road trip. And yeah, so I like to look at this one, and Consumer Reports, Car and Driver, they all do EV reviews. Let me try to find a good one for you. Compare EV models. Yeah, I'll drop this one as well.
For those of you in the room, when she says she's dropping things, we will recover that later and send it out on an email. So if we have your email address, we will send it to you. And it will be on the website as well under the EV program. So both the link to the recording and which goes actually on our, well, anyway, the link to the recording as well as some of the details she's describing.
Yeah, Gary, it's true. Gary put a comment in the chat. He's saying that Toyota does not seem to be fully supporting electric, but it's developing hydrogen power cars. They don't. So yeah, Toyota and Subaru have been a bit late to the EV market. Toyota is looking at hybrids, plug-in hybrids. They've had the Prius, and now they have the Prius Prime as well as the RAV4 Prime. And those are very popular. And I've heard for the first time just recently that the RAV4 Prime does not have, like, the dealers aren't marking it up by $5,000 anymore. So that's really great. And yeah, they do have, is it the Toyota Mirai? We don't really deal at all with hydrogen powered cars because we don't see that there's any clean hydrogen available, or green hydrogen. It takes a lot of carbon to create hydrogen. Unfortunately, it seems like such a simple process, but unfortunately, it's not, and so it's not very clean. But we're hoping that maybe some new technology to produce clean hydrogen will help, particularly for really long drives. So I've heard there might be some good applications for trucks, like trucks that drive, cross country, that, electric trucks, that can be a good use of hydrogen in the future, once they've been able to develop green hydrogen truly. You said there's a rebate. Yeah.
Hi, Annika. A new question now. So we're looking at the cars in 2023. Are there things coming up in 2024 that are new in the market pretty soon and now, or that we might look for in the 2024
Yes.
car year?
Yes. So many cars are coming out. Like I just read, there's the Hyundai Ioniq less expensive. So that's exciting. So that's something to look for. But yeah, there are a few cars. In my presentation, I do have a few coming cars that are going to be new to the market in 2024 that I can share with you. I see another question in the chat. You said there's a 30% up to $1,000 for individual home charging HOAs who have to adapt their electric infrastructure. Yes. So there are, I understand, and I think that's something that will be covered a little bit later today, like, charging experiences in Rossmoor. What I am seeing, what I've heard is that if you want to look for federal tax credits for anything like upgrading the electric panels, Rewiring America is a good source of information. And if you are looking for local rebates here in your county or through your CCA, MCE, or through the state, the switch is on. So these are two, I'm sorry, let me get the link so it's a little bit easier for everyone while we're sort of waiting anyway. Switch is on. So this is like for all things electric. And let's see.
So Annika, I have a question.
Yes.
So could you say something about sort of a plug-in hybrid versus an electric vehicle? I understand the plug-in still has fossil fuels, but could you just say something about the disadvantages and advantages?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the advantages to driving a BEV, a battery electric vehicle, which is fully electric, is that the maintenance costs are 40% the cost of what a gas car. But with a plug-in hybrid, it's going to be, you're not going to see that savings because it has two different systems in it. I would say that, as the EV infrastructure is developing, like for most of our driving, we, if we're able to charge at home, or if we have a local source of being able to charge. I know at Rossmoor, there are several level 2 charging stations around. Day-to-day driving is pretty easy because you can just plug in easily and conveniently at home or near home. But but the general infrastructure, if you're on a road trip, is not super reliable, except for the Tesla supercharging network currently, which is like 99% reliable, maybe even more. So we're seeing like 75% reliability for other chargers when you're on a road trip, for example. And so that's an advantage to getting a plug-in hybrid, that like while we wait for more robust infrastructure for road trips, we can do our local driving on electricity with a plug-in hybrid and then use gas on road trips, which might not be quite as often. So that's an advantage. And I would say, some people are like, if you don't have access to charging at home, get a plug-in hybrid. But I say the opposite to that, because I feel like if you want to take advantage of the low emissions of a plug-in hybrid and also the low cost of electricity, then you'll want to charge that every single day so that you can drive on electricity most of the time. I do know a lot of people who have plug-in hybrids who say they go to the gas station once a year because they're able to charge every day and just kind of replenish what they used that day.
Annika,
Yes.
this is Barry. I think what we're going to do, since we are recording this and we will have the slides and your talk recorded, as well as the fact that there's 19 people or 19 participants that do see the slides as
Okay.
well, that we'll have you go ahead and complete your talk,
Okay.
and then I think that's the best we can do right now. We have called the audio visual guy, and he'll come when he comes, but we don't
Okay.
want to keep everyone here forever.
That's a great idea. And we left off at the perfect slide. If you can go back 2 slides to Tesla, if you're in the audience, you don't have to use your imagination so much, because you've all seen Teslas probably. They're pretty common. I feel like they're becoming the kind of the generic car. It reminds me of I don't know. It seems like in like communist Russia, there was like one brand of car that everybody had. It seems like that's becoming the case with Tesla, particularly the gray Tesla Model Y, which I recently purchased. I was on a road trip to LA, and I've been 3 times on a road trip to LA in the last 2 months. My daughter is going to college down there, and every time we stop at these supercharging stations, like half of the cars are gray Tesla Model Ys. But anyway, yes, so we were just leaving off here. We do like to separate the CEO from the technology. Yeah, Tesla is advanced in their technology, in their cars, as well as for their charging stations. The Model 3 and the Model Y are the most affordable models. Some people think that you have to pay $75,000 for a Tesla, but these Teslas, the Model 3 and the Model Y, are some of the most affordable EVs out there. The Model 3 at less than $40,000 and the Model Y just above $40,000 for their starting MSRP. Tesla has their own proprietary supercharging network. Charging is easy and fast. These are beautiful, safe cars. The Model Y has an optional 3rd row of seats if you want to take a bunch of passengers along with you. I'll just talk a little bit about the charging infrastructure. So because the Tesla superchargers are so reliable, almost every single manufacturer of EVs is switching over to their standard of charging, which is called the North American Charging Standard now. That will be happening in 2025. So the charging ports on most EVs in 2025 will just have that regular Tesla port, which is super easy to use. So that's great. And in the meantime, in 2024, many car companies will be providing adapters so that people can use the Tesla supercharging network. And the good news too is that Tesla, I just saw an analysis, it's much cheaper for Tesla to build their chargers, their super fast chargers, than other manufacturers. So they build them, they have, it's simple, and they are building more and more charging stations all over the place. So that's really great news. So it should be ready for prime time. On these 3 road trips, you typically stop twice, on the way down and twice on the way back to charge. I have not had to stop. I have not had to wait in line anytime on these last 3 road trips. So that's really good news. Okay, next slide. These next 4 EVs here are pretty new, and they have something in common in that they offer bidirectional batteries and very fast charging. These cars sit on the same platform. So these are the Kias, the Hyundais, the Genesis. And so these brands are similar. They're Korean made, and they're reasonably priced. Many of them are reasonably priced. They have a good amount of range. And these are kind of this next generation after those original like Kia Niro and Hyundai Kona. This is kind of the next stage of cars that were built only for, exclusively as electric vehicles. So they're really fun. And then the next slide, some cars that came out in 2021, the Volkswagen ID4, very popular, really great pricing, especially now with our discount campaign. The Ford Mustang Mach-E is really quite awesome. People love this car. And the Polestar is a sister kind of company of Volvo, really reliable. I will be honest and tell you like kind of a personal story, but my brother has a Model Y and that he uses for road trips and a Polestar that he uses for around the town driving. He loves the Polestar. It drives really, really well. If you're really into cars, that is something that you could test drive. Next.
Annika,
The
would
Subaru.
you please explain what bidirectional is and why anybody would care about that?
Yes, of course. So bidirectional charger means that you can power your refrigerator or other large appliances with the car battery for a week or so. So there's no need for a gas generator. And you can bring this with you. We bring these to our EV shows, and we demonstrate popping popcorn off of the battery of the EV. You can set up a whole like workspace. You could use these for camping. You could use these when the power goes out locally. You can just plug in your computer and small appliances. I think a lot of people care about the refrigerator. I know when we lost power for 5 days in San Rafael 3 years ago, everybody was just firing up their barbecues and grilling all of the meat that was thawing in their freezers. So these are, very functional in this, moving forward. Very exciting for the bidirectional. Sorry about that I didn't explain it better. Okay, so here are, so these are some cars that came out in 2022. The Subaru Solterra, the
We
Toyota.
now have video back.
Yay, the BZ4X, and the Nissan Ariya is exciting because Nissan now has something to offer rather than the Nissan Leaf. So really cool. And then a couple cars that are coming in 2023 or 2024. This slide originally said, next slide, please. But the original slide said, the slide says coming in 2023. Next slide, please. Oh, there we go. Yeah, no, sorry, go back now. My bad. But as is true sometimes with new releases, the cars are delayed. So some of these are now coming out in 2024. Looks like the Chevy Blazer will come out. Maybe the end of 2023, the beginning of 2024. Chevrolet is mixing it up with a few exciting new models that have been popular in their gas versions. And Volvo is coming out with a small, fully electric EV, the EX30. They say small in size, big on safety, holding true to the Volvo tradition of safe cars. And next slide. I also wanted to just showcase a couple of plug-in hybrids. There are many, many plug-in hybrids out there, about 30 different models. These are some of the most popular ones that are out there. So we kind of say, if you cannot find an all-electric car that works for you, there are many plug-in hybrids or PHEVs out there. And as I mentioned earlier, if you plug in a PHEV every day, you may be able to cover your commute driving all electric, and you can save the gas tank for road trips. Next. So EVs have been around for just about 12 years, 10 to 12 years. This time around, of course, they were the original cars in the United States before gas cars ever came to market. But this time around, they've been around for 10 to 12 years, about the same time frame as iPads. Just find that to be kind of interesting. It seems like we've had iPads forever. So many people tend to lease EVs because it's new technology and people are like, oh, I want to get an EV with a longer range. So there are often EVs coming off of their leases. And this is happening all the time because, people lease cars at any given time. So the leases, they come off their lease at any given time. And you can find used EVs in a variety of places. And I'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. But these are some of the very affordable EVs, used EVs. There are some higher range EVs like Teslas and Chevy Bolts. I do want to just say the Chevy Bolt, the used Chevy Bolt is quite interesting and might be a really great option for many people. So as many of you may recall, Chevy Bolt had a recall. So it was required that all Chevy Bolts through 2021 had to replace their battery packs. So you can buy a 2017 Chevy Bolt with a brand new battery pack, which comes with a warranty of 8 years or 100,000 miles for about $15,000. So that's a really good deal for such a long range EV. Remember, the Chevy Bolt has about 250 miles of range. So that's a really great proposition, to consider. All right. And I'll tell a little bit about my story, because one of my EVs, we have two EVs in our family. We've had them for we started with the Tesla Model 3. That was our main family car that we took on road trips. I bought it after all the discounts. It ended up being like $30,000. I bought it to a friend for $25,000, which was a great deal for him because it's hard to get them for under $29,000, even 4 years old and used. But it only has an 85-mile range, but it was a perfect car for my teenagers who were just starting to drive. They could drive to school and back. They could do errands. We live in San Rafael. They could go to Stinson Beach and back. They could go to San Francisco and back, or Berkeley and back. So all of their favorite destinations. And that worked out fine with a low range EV. And so I do want to just throw this out that people are really fixated on getting a high range EV. But for many people, most people in the Bay Area drive less than 25 miles a day. So these low range EVs can work out great for a lot of people. And you can get some really good deals. There are some used Nissan Leafs in like the $10,000 range in really cherry condition. So it's definitely something to consider. All right, next slide. I work closely. I've been in touch with Greenlight Auto for a really long time. Al, who owns Greenlight Auto, they do used EVs and hybrids, plug-in hybrids. Al is a really great guy, and he's just great to talk to. And I recommend that dealer. And then just in the last year, a great dealership came to be called eMotion Autos. This is a dealership that is just started by two former colleagues who they were doing research at Stanford University together in the 80s on climate change and how to manage electricity and utilities. So they've been in this business for a long time, in the climate business, I should say, and the utility business for a really long time. And in their retirement, they started this eMotion Autos dealership. So their model is they will find you any used EV that you would like. They do this through auctions. So they go out to auction and they find the car of your dreams, the used EV of your dreams. That's how I got my second. So because my daughter is now in school in Los Angeles, we needed a longer range car. So we decided to sell that Tesla Model 3 and we bought a Tesla Model Y so that we could have the extra range. But I bought it from these guys, Adam and Greg at eMotion Autos, and they've been doing this for about a year, and they're really great to work with. The pricing is great. They're not really in it so much for a big profit. They are, in it because they realized that they see a lot of EV chargers that aren't being used locally where they live, and they just want to get more people driving electric. So that's sort of, their big action to the earth. So I recommend working with both of these. So the way eMotion works, though, is you first have to, you tell them exactly what you want. Like I told them the color, the car, the year, what kind of level of a used car I would accept. I said I would want one that's 4.5 out of 5 or above in terms of like scratches or like minor things. I told them exactly how much I wanted to pay for it. I would not pay more than this amount. And so then I gave them a deposit of $500. And if they were able to find that exact car for me, then I would have to, I would either have to buy that car or lose my deposit. If they were not able to find that exact car, they would refund me the deposit. But they were able to find the exact car that I wanted at a really good price. So very happy with them. Okay. So I know that I'm not sure if many people at Rossmoor are interested in e-bikes, but e-bikes are a really great vehicle option for getting around. You know, I know Rossmoor is a big facility, so if you want to, you know, bike over to the gym or bike over to the movie theater, you could do so easily, quite easily on an e-bike without really, you know, breaking a sweat. So that's really nice. It's a great opportunity if you, I don't know exactly what the infrastructure is like around Rossmoor to get to downtown Walnut Creek, but it could be an option for running errands. I know a lot of people do enjoy that. It's a great way of getting out of your gas car to, you know, do some quick, you know, getting to some places near where you live. And I just wanted to briefly mention on the next slide, we actually have an e-bike discount campaign going on as well through the end of the year. We're partnered with Rad Power Bikes down in Berkeley. They have a showroom in Berkeley. And the thing that's amazing about Rad Power Bikes, their bikes are rated by Consumer Reports as like, I think like 4 out of 5, like they have a really, really decent ratings. And while the average cost for e-bikes is around 20, well, I shouldn't say average, but e-bikes kind of run from like $2,500 to $10,000 in most, if you go into most, you know, e-bike shops. Now, Rad Power Bikes has 9 e-bikes under $19.99, and they have significant discounts, and we're offering a $400 off through 2023. So they have 10 different styles of e-bikes. They even have trikes. So they have a tricycle. So if you're a little nervous about balance, that's a really nice option as well. And there are, in addition to this rebate, coming very soon is a California state e-bike rebate for between 12, if your income qualifies, between $1,250 and $2,000 off an e-bike. So you could get one of those trikes and you could get it for almost free, or basically for free, with that state rebate. I'm going to put the link to this. There's a place for this rebate where you can actually sign up. Sign up to get updates on when this rebate is going to go live, where you can actually, you know, sign up for it. So I suggest that you do this if you're interested in an e-bike. I promised I wouldn't spend too much time on e-bikes, so I'll move along now to the next slide. So a little bit on how to EV. I'll just do a brief overview on charging. Next slide again. So people get worried about charging, but for many people, 80 to 90% of charging is done at home. And charging at home is really easy. You just plug in the charger that comes with your vehicle into a standard 120 volt outlet. There are no install costs besides perhaps an extension cord, and it gives you between 25 and 40 miles of charge in 8 hours. If you drive more than 40 miles a day, a good option is to see if you to install level 2 charging. I know there's a lot of level 2 charging opportunities at Rossmoor already, so that's really nice to know. With that, you get about 25 miles in an hour, but for most people, level 1 works out just great. But if for a road trip, I just want to point out that level 3 is a way to go. We talked about, you know, here on this slide, if you look under level 3, the one on the left is only for Nissan Leafs. The one on the right is only for Teslas. The one in the middle is for all other EVs. And pretty soon, other EVs are going to have that one on the right, the Tesla port. That's the kind of charging you want to do when you're on a road trip. Okay, I just have 2 quick slides. The next one, please. Once you do drive electric, it's ideal to charge your EV from rooftop solar. There's a federal tax credit available for solar and battery for up to 30% of the cost for the next 10 years. If you're not ready for solar, you can choose a clean energy plan from MCE. They have an EV, a special EV rate that makes it very affordable to charge between midnight and 3 p.m. And they also, you know, in addition to this affordable rate, they offer very clean energy. Either they're light green or for 60% renewables, or they're deep green for 100% renewables. So we love giving our money to MCE because they're investing in a renewable future. And finally, just I have 2 quick slides. This was interesting. I got this from San Jose Clean Energy, but just a little tip for those of you who drive electric. This is why most utilities and CCAs are now suggesting that we charge during the day. So this is our grid. Basically, the green line is when we have renewables online. So now we're talking about daytime charging. It wasn't, they used to say don't use energy during the day. Now with all this solar energy on our grid, they say, please charge your EV during the day when the sun is shining. Next, this is just, I just want to tell you a little bit about MCE Sync. It's a smart charging app. So if you sign up for MCE Sync, they give you a little sign up bonus and you might be able to save $10 a month. But you have this app on your phone and you connect it to your car and you basically let MCE Sync decide when to charge it. They will charge it at the least expensive and time when there are the most renewables on the grid. So I wanted to recommend this. It's a great tool that MCE is offering. And then finally, just, we're here to help you ride and drive electric. We offer EV and e-bike discount campaigns. We have EV and e-bike shows. We did one in Walnut Creek last year. We do webinars all the time, and we have some buying guides online. I did kind of forget that we had a poll. We were going to do a pre-survey poll, weren't we? And I forgot that, but we could do our post-survey poll if we have time. I'm not sure. I know we were a little delayed today. Is there time for that? And if so, I don't know if I can run the poll. I don't think I can run the poll. Somebody else would have to start it. If it doesn't happen, it's okay. This was kind of a special case tonight with the audio-visual situation. But I would like to thank you all for, for coming tonight and wanting to learn more about driving electric. And we hope that that this was helpful for you. And our big wish really is if you pledge to make your next car electric, used or new, would be really great. But our biggest ask really is please don't buy a new gas car because it will be on this earth for 12 to 15 years, spewing emissions that are making our air quality poor and causing climate change. And we need to stop burning fossil fuels as quickly as we can.
Annika, thank you. I don't think we queued up the poll.
Okay,
I
no
can
worries
check.
on that.
Okay. We could do a verbal request. Paul, but
it's okay. Let's not worry so much about it. It's fine.
okay. So I'm looking on the chat here. I don't know, Brad, were you do you have any particular questions here? Okay, we have.
Oh yeah, the Fisker. I
Right.
do have some thoughts on the Fisker. We had one at a recent EV show. There's a guy who brought his Fisker Ocean. I am kind of obsessed with this car. I think it's really cool. It has a solar sky roof so you can actually generate 1,500 emissions-free miles from this solar sky roof if you keep it outside every day. I think that's really cool. And at the push of one button, it's not quite a convertible, but at a push of one button, all 8 windows come down and the sky roof. So it's kind of like a convertible, pseudo convertible. So that's very cool. The guy who brought this, the Ocean to the show, it's a beautiful car. And he happens to know Henrik Fischer. So he was one of the first people to get a Fisker Ocean. And he said that the other person who got the Fisker Ocean at the same time as he did was Bernie Sanders. So I thought that was kind of a funny story. Go Bernie.
Yeah. Well, how much does the Ocean cost?
So this happens a lot with cars that, they don't. Okay, so the base model was like 40,000, is it less than 40,000? But they don't release the base model first. They release the more expensive models. I know the guy who was at the car show paid like 60,000 for his. There's one that's kind of in between that I think is more like in the $55,000 range. But yeah, we have to wait maybe a year or two to get that more affordable version. But I don't think the lowest end version actually has the solar sky roof. So you may have to spend a little more money to get the that cool feature.
Okay, Annika, thank you. I'm gonna have us go on with the program tonight because we are now
Yeah.
behind schedule. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
So Brad, we can either do a panel. We can do Adrian's. Um, I know Adrian would like. There's some time factor on Adrian's, so minimum Adrian would need is 5 to 10. Okay. 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 Let me. Okay. Let's. Yeah. Let me get the slides and go down to where you are. Oh, sorry. 2, 3, 4 days. Okay. Is this EV charging? This one? Okay. 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 Now we're going to have Adrian Byram talk about.
Okay, good. I'll try and make this quick because of the time. I'm looking at the issue of the future of charging here at Rossmoor. How do we do it? What's the solution? A number of us have been talking about this for several years now. And to start with, that is not the solution. Level 2 chargers are not the solution. And there's two reasons for that. The first reason is that EV sales are accelerating. As Annika pointed out, it's 25% in last quarter of EV sales of new car sales in California. 25% of them were EVs. In the Bay Area, it's 50%. Okay, so these things are going like crazy. And installing the infrastructure to actually allow proper charging takes a long time. If any of you are watching the system up there, the Electrify America system, we were finding ourselves that it took like a year after they'd installed it before the electricity got turned on. So there's a real problem with that. Okay. Okay. Good. Okay. Good. Okay. Thank you. So this slide here shows us the actual growth in EV sales. So the little wiggly worm at the bottom left corner there is the actual sales, percentage of new car sales, market share of EVs in California to date. And this S-shaped curve is typical of any innovation. It's called the innovation diffusion equation. And we've known about it since 1960. It's the way smartphones rolled out. It's the way DVDs and CDs rolled out. It starts slowly, it wraps up quickly, and then it eventually slows down. And it shows that by about 2034, we're going to be at 100%. And that's reasonable because by 2035, internal combustion engine cars will not be allowed in California. They cannot be sold. And in fact, many manufacturers are actually already saying that by 2030, they will not be selling any gasoline cars. So EV growth is really happening. But here at Rossmoor, there's already 336 as of June. I got that from Tom Cashin, the safety director. And that's about 5%, a little less than 5% of all the cars here at Rossmoor, which is kind of interesting because in California as a whole, only 2.5% of all cars are electric. So this group of people here, we're not old fogies. It's the young whippersnappers out there, the old fogies, and can't make up their mind and go ahead with something new. We're ahead of the curve. But that has some consequences because what's happening is that we're going to see a terrific growth over the next several years in the number of cars that are electric vehicles. The green line is sort of my low projection, which says we're going to replace the vehicles every 12 years. And the high forecast is we're going to replace them every 8 years. So I thought I'd actually ask for a show of hands. Of the cars that you have right now, how long is it going to be before you sell them? From the time you bought it to the time you replace it. How many are going to keep your current car for less than 8 years? Would you, I want to see a show of hands. Whatever car you have, are you going to keep it for less than 8 years from the time you bought it? No, about a third of the people. Okay, are you going to keep it for less than between 8 and 12 years? Okay, about another third. Are you going to keep it for more than 12 years? Oh, yeah, about a third of the people. Okay, so about a third and a third and a third. So somewhere between those two lines will actually end up. But what that means is by 2027, only 3 years from now, we're looking at somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 electric vehicles here at Rossmoor. And by 2030, we're looking at about 3,000 to 4,500. That's a lot of cars. And how do we charge those? If we're going to use a DC fast charger, that's going to take about 10 chargers here in 2027 rather, and about 20 chargers in 10 years by 2030. By 2030, 6 years. So the problem is, okay, so what are our charging options for all of those? The first one and the most obvious one is charge it in your own garage or carport. But of course, only a third of us actually have garages or carports. Most of the homes here at Rossmoor are in shared carports and don't have electric, good electric service out there. You can use off-property fast chargers like the Electrify America at Safeway or the EV Go down at Texaco, but there's not a lot of space for those out there at this point. So will there be enough for 1,000 or 2,000? If you go there now, you'll actually see often that they're full, that there's 3 or 4 cars charging at each one. So the third option really is to install chargers here, DC fast chargers, right here at Rossmoor. And what we really need to do is have GRF install those, not the mutuals. And there's reasons why. Firstly, having them here at Rossmoor means that they're going to be convenient and it's going to be safe. It's behind our gate. You know, you can pull in, you can sit there in your car and you won't have to worry about it. It's convenient. It's on your way home. No big problems. There's no financially feasible way for most of us to actually install our own chargers, level 2 chargers, or certainly not these kind, which cost $100,000 a piece. So if GRF would step up and actually do this and put in these fast chargers, that'd solve a lot of the problems for us. There's no way for the mutuals. Mutuals don't have any money. They're spending all their money on roofs and drains and things like that. They cannot afford to spend money on chargers for people. If we had something like this at Rossmoor, it would improve the resale value of our homes because everybody would look at it and say, wow, this is terrific. You can come here, you can live here, you can charge your car in 5 or 10 minutes. And it may even allow you to get a lower price for the charging. You're paying 45 cents probably at Electrify America. We can probably deliver charging from our own supply here at somewhere between 35 and 40 cents a kilowatt hour. So significant saving. So where would we do this? Probably the event center and Gateway. Why? Because of solar. We're actually putting in, due to work that the sustainable Rossmoor did back many years ago and continued to do, we're putting in solar at over the parking lot at the event center and at the Gateway. And if you look up here, that chunk of solar is going to be over the new pickleball court. Okay. I hope you're happy for the pickleball court or the solar, whatever, doesn't matter. So the interesting thing about that is that by putting in that solar, you've got to bring in a very large wire to drain all the power out of the solar and transmit it to the grid. That same wire can operate, can go, the electricity can flow the opposite way from the grid into these chargers. And these chargers take up a lot of power. And so we can save money and we can use that infrastructure that we've already got in progress 2 different ways. And so that's why these 2 locations are really the best place. So what should Rossmoor do right now? Well, I put together this kind of some of these details and sent them off to the planning committee, the GRF planning committee, and said, here guys, all we need to do right now is start the planning process, because it's going to take 3 or 4 years to get this done. It's probably going to take a year to sort of get all the plan straight and everything else. But if we don't start now, ain't nothing going to happen. And we're going to find ourselves 3 or 4 years down the road and wondering, well, now what do we do? So the planning committee is this Thursday at 10:30 in the morning. They're meeting in the boardroom over here at Gateway. I'm asking some of you, all of you, I don't care how many, would you come and speak at that meeting and say, let's just, get the planning process started now. And if you can't come and speak, could you send an email to GRB, Golden Rain Board, at rossmoor.com, and just ask them that just let them know that you're in favor of starting the planning process for this whole process for DC fast chargers here at Rossmoor. It may be that we end up doing something different. The planning might show us something different, but we need to get going, or else we'll be sitting here 4 years from now going, now what? Okay, thank you very much.
Adrian, thank you for that great great presentation, and hope a lot of you will send that email or attend. Brad, how do you want to handle the EV owners panel? Okay.
Good evening again. I think what we're going to do in light of what has already gone down, fortunately, Annika did a really, really good job, I think, of giving everyone a real good overview on some of the basics of things like charging, etc. But I think it's what we need to do now is get into more specifics and talk about how do you charge what are the practicalities of charging here in Rossmoor? And so, let me ask a couple quick questions that we didn't do any polling earlier. But how many is anybody here who is planning on buying an EV in the next year or so? In the next year? Okay. And so one of my first suggestions for you is do some serious thinking about exactly what you're looking for in an EV. And in other words, make sure that the car you get is going to then, in fact, meet your lifestyle and your driving pattern. For example, if you're on average, because of either obligations to drive into San Francisco 2 or 3 times a week, to babysit grandkids, you still work part-time, whatever, you're driving 40, 50 miles a day, and you're not going to want to buy an EV that only has a 50 or 75 mile range, because you're gonna need to recharge it halfway so you can get home. I assume you all want to come home. And so a couple other things that bear in mind is that when you look at an EV, and it will tell you what the stated maximum range is. Like you've seen some of them up here, it says it's a 235 mile range. Take that with more than a grain of salt, because your mileage may vary. Because one of the things you find out, and I found out in my EV, is that the mileage will vary radically depending on what type of driving I'm doing. If in my car, if I turn on a couple options we've got to be more power conscious, if I'm driving around town, flat course, flat streets, reasonable speeds, 25, 30 miles an hour, I can generate as much power as I burn, which means I come home with the battery still almost fully charged. If instead I jump on that freeway and drive down to Pleasanton at 70 miles an hour, I'll have to charge before I even get home. I mean, I can't do it. And so my mileage varies radically. If it's uphill, I burn a lot more than I do going downhill. And the faster it goes, the faster you can burn up the power. And that's the same way it works in your gas car, except that in the gas car, we don't pay that much of attention to it, because gas is so easily come by for that car, because there's gas stations everywhere, right? And it only takes you 5 minutes to stop at a gas station and you can pump it full. Neither of those are true with an EV, right? You can't do it fast, unless, even if you get a fast charger, it's still not 5 minutes worth. So you've got to make sure that, again, whatever car you get, is going to fit the lifestyle that you want that car to help you with. Okay. And well, okay. And Barry's a mad muter. Okay. Yeah. We talked about, Annika did a real good job of talking about DC fast charging, and the fact that if make sure your car has one. Not all of them did or do. For example, I've got a 2015 Nissan Leaf that I bought used. As Annika said, it came off a lease, and I made sure it had a DC fast charger in it. That model, up until then, and I think probably even after that 2015 model, it was an option. You had to pay extra to get one, and not everybody did. And so, depending on what your charging options for you are at home, you may not use it very often, but those times when you want it, right? Um, and so the one thing she mentioned is there's 3 different style of plugs, and if you remember, I know you all have that image burned in your mind that she showed up the 3 different plugs and which one were which, right? No, you don't. And the one on the far left was the one that's used by Nissan, and that's the one I've got. And so, and one thing to be careful about that one, it's getting phased out. And for example, the new high-speed chargers that they put in at the shopping center here, right? It has 4 stations with 2 heads each. That is two cables with a connector on it. So out of those 8 connectors, I've got one of them. So if that machine is either not functional that day or it's already being used, I wait. And so that's one of the things I'm going to do when I make sure that I'm going to buy my new EV next year. It's going to have more standard connector. So that's the only thing to say about that. Those things there. And the other thing that I strongly recommend anybody does is going to buy one is make sure you know where you're going to charge it and how you're going to charge it, when you're going to charge it before you actually buy it. I mean, just because you can get by with it if you buy it first, but it'll be far less frustrating for you if you plan that all the other way around. I do know of people who moved to Rossmoor, bought an EV, then said, "Where do I charge it?" Hello, and as Adrian said, if you happen to be one of us, that have a detached carport or garage, it's even more of a problem than you think about. And so one of the things that this is probably a good way of transitioning into getting someone other than me. So Alice, are you ready to talk about? I've asked Alice King to speak about what she has gone through in charging her EV since she lives in Mutual One in a detached carport. Well, she doesn't live in the carport, the car does.
Well, first thing I have to say is that I have exactly the same car as Brad, and he helped me find it. I bought it off of a lease, and I love it, and I can't imagine going back to gas or an internal combustion engine, and that was one of the reasons I wanted an all-electric, was because I figured you were still going to have the disadvantage. If you had a hybrid, you were going to have the disadvantage of still having an internal combustion engine that you had all the maintenance on. So it's just wipers and tires. And I'm in Mutual One, and I live up on Oakmont Drive on entry 15, and we have I'm in a fourplex, and there's our entry, and then a row of carports that are under a G11 building. So, it's mutual. Where I plug in, it says on the permit that I can charge in my carport. In 2019, Mutual One allowed me to, I don't know if the word allowed is very good. The permit said that I would have a dedicated outlet by putting in a GFCI outlet, and it was $20 a month for the charging that they were charging me at that point. But that's a whole nother story. But I had to put in the GFCI, which meant if you do electric work, you have to get a city permit. So for one outlet, the city permit was almost $400, and the electrician was about $400, and it was, I think, a $75 permit from the mutual. So it was almost $900 for me to be able to plug in to the outlet in my carport. And it says dedicated on the permit, but all the carports in most of Mutual One, people share the outlet. There's 2 cars and 1 outlet in the carport.
So it isn't really dedicated because if my neighbor needs to use the car, the outlet for something else, like, blow out the leaves or such, I can't plug in at that moment. But it's been really great because the Nissan only has about an 85-mile range, and I can plug in any time because, and I use it for just around town. It was either buy a golf cart or buy an EV with a low range at that point. And I wouldn't go back to a gas car, but we have another gasoline car that my husband drives. So does anybody have any questions about Mutual One? Have I discouraged anybody from trying? And I did try this week to get more updated information as to whether they're still requiring that the GFCI outlet be installed, and I couldn't get an answer. I know that Mutual 2 was just letting people charge on the existing outlet, but they were charging $50 a month, and Mutual One was charging us $20 a month up until about 5 months ago, when out of the blue I opened a letter that said it was now going to be $50 a month. So not only did I have to pay the almost $900 to install the GFCI, now I have to pay $50 a month. But as my husband reminded me, for the driving that I do, which is a fair amount, now that COVID has let us back out on the streets, I would, and if I did have a gas car, I'm sure I would be spending $50 a month, but I don't. I have my wonderful EV. Thank you, Brad.
Since Alice has already talked to you a little bit about my car, I'm going to take 2 minutes to just share with you my story of how I came to get it, and what you can do if you're open to considering a used EV. In 2018, I had finally had enough of driving an old gas guzzler. I, at that point, had a 2008 Acura TL, which was a top-of-the-line Acura at the time, that had 135,000 miles. And because it was a high-end road car, and I wasn't taking any road trips, I was getting 14 to 16 miles a gallon on premium gas, and I was spending between $2,000 and $4,000 a year on repairs and maintenance, and so I said, that's enough of. Yeah, I'm finally going to do what I've always wanted to do, which is drive an all-electric vehicle that's powered by clean electricity. So I said, I'm going to do it. And so I was fortunate enough to live in a Mutual 3 project that in a manner that has an attached carport. And so it was financially feasible for me to have an electrician come in and run a 240 volt circuit into the carport, where I could plug in the EV charger and charge it at home, at level 2. And so what I did is I actually went through that whole process, etc., and had it installed before I even bought the car. Because I didn't want to come home and be stuck up on top of Ptarmigan with no place to charge and not be able to. So that's what I did. And to make it even sweeter, so I found a 2015 Nissan Leaf that, just as I said, just come off a lease. It had just under 23,000 miles on it. It was in near immaculate condition and had all the bells and whistles I wanted: navigation, fast charging, etc. And I got it out the door for $13,000, and I sold my used Acura for $7,000 cash. So it cost me $6,000 to have a car that I've spent, in the last 6 years that I've owned it, have spent a total of $200 on repairs and maintenance, not the $2,000 to $4,000 a year. And so yes, for the EV fast charger, I paid the electrician in total about $1,500 to put that in. That was insignificant because I knew that what I was going to save between the gas costs and the maintenance, I'd pay for that thing in 6 months or less. And so it's now about time for me to upgrade to a newer car with a longer range. And so that's next year's project. And so it'll still be a used one, because the incentives are there, and I'm a bit Scottish. So, and so, and so one of the things that, again, what Alice talked about is charging it in your own carport. And what you probably picked up on is there are differences between each mutual, and some of them can be significant. So if you want to charge near where your manor is, whether either in your carport or in that general vicinity, obviously the very first thing you got to do is become familiar with what your mutual requires. And go online, if they have a EV charging policy, which they better, it should be posted on the Rossmoor website. Become familiar with that. Talk to find out who in your mutual is their point person on EV charging. Talk to that point person. Say, okay, what do I need to do? What do you allow? What do you require? And then ask the same thing of MOD to make sure they're in sync. They aren't always. And then use that to start your planning and see, okay, where do we put it? What's going to cost? Do I really want to do this? And if you decide the answer is yes, then go ahead and do it. But that's the very first place to start, is on what your mutual requires. It becomes challenging again. It can become challenging depending on your mutual. As I said, not every mutual will allow you to tap into their power and in a detached carport. Alice was lucky that Mutual 1 allowed that. Mutual 2 has been doing that for almost 4 years now. Fortunately, the person who set that policy up for Mutual 2 and still enforces it today is a member of Sustainable Rossmoor. So we have access to Mark, and plus he's a quasi neighbor of mine, lives right down the hill from me. And so if anybody wants to do that in their mutual, and the mutual is not quite up to speed on what it is, we've got resources that we can help with that. Another possibility for you to think about is looking at going in together with a couple of your neighbors who also own or want to own an EV, and they would benefit from a level 2, a 240 volt charger. But you don't want to spend the money to do it individually. You can do it as a group. Does that add a bit of complexity? Yes. Can it be worth it? Yes. Dave, you got a couple minutes? You want to share us with what? And Dave Reiki is a retired electrical engineer. He lives here in Rossmoor, obviously up in Mutual 48. And I'll have him tell you what he did, just to plant seeds in case it might be applicable to what you guys want to do.
I want to correct that, because sometimes you won't be able to, and it works perfectly well depending on what your lifestyle is.
Right.
So if you go to the gym often, you charge it while you're at the gym and you're off and running every day. So literally. So it does not require individual. So
No, it doesn't require, but my suggestion is you're probably going to want to hopefully have all those options to you. You want to be able to have and have ability to charge it at home when that's works for you best for your schedule. Ability to charge it, like at the gym or event center, and a fast charger if you're out on the road. Again, you got to look at all your options, in my opinion. Then we'll get back to your question about that after we hear from Dave about what he did up in Mutual 48.
So I have 3 EV chargers, or I'm sorry, 3 EVs. I've owned I leased a Leaf to start with back in 2015, I think. And then when the lease was up, I went on to a Tesla 3, and then now I have a closer. Well, I'll probably screw that up. It's probably better if it's like this. Let's try it there. Is this better? Yeah, okay. So now it's too loud. No? Okay? Okay. It's loud for me. So now I have a Model Y. This is all. In our mutual, I realized that we were going to need to have more access to charging stations. Our particular mutual, 48, is only a small mutual. It has 62 units, and it has a lot of garages. So about half the people have at least one garage and one carport. And about a quarter of those people have carports or have attached garages. So it's pretty easy for them to put in a 100 or 240 volt line. And I think we have 7 EVs in our mutual now, about 12 or 13% of the mutual. And they have, and almost everybody has installed something in their garage. Either they're just using their garage power or their wall power, or they're using a 240 volt charger. And that hasn't been too expensive for them to do. But the people who don't have, there are a few people who don't have a garage and they don't have a car, they don't have a private carport. So the detached garages are connected to the owner's power, so that you can charge on those plugs. I tried to get a installation for a 240 volt. Went through 7 or 8 electricians to get quotes. The lowest I got after about hanging out with this guy for 2 weeks, it was 13,000. And I just thought, it's ridiculous. I'm not going to do that. So that's when I decided to go to my mutual in 2018. And I proposed a shared putting in 2 charging stations, level 2. But these were quite a bit higher power than the ones we've been talking about. So the ones I put in are 70. Let's see, I can't remember for sure. They're 19 kilowatts, and so they're both 19 kilowatt charging stations. That means they can do about 70. They can add about 70 miles per hour of charging. So you can charge almost any EV within 8 hours, right to the top, no matter how much capacity they have. So I approached the board at Mutual 48 and told them I wanted to do this. I told them it was going to be on the mutual property, but everybody would have access, and we could form a committee to maintain the units. There'd be no cost to the mutual at all. We'd take care of everything. And they considered that for a few months. This was in the summer of 2018. So in the fall, they ended up approving it, and we broke ground, got permits, broke ground, and started the installation process. We formed a charging committee, and they elected it, and I was put in as the chairman of that committee. So I wrote the bylaws for the group and how it would work. What we did is we installed these chargers, and we created a membership for 12 people. This system would hold up. It would allow us to have 12 members who were guaranteed access to the charging station every day. And then those people that were members paid a fee, a one-time fee to become a member, a lifetime member for this. And then the rest of the people who wanted to be casual users could use it as on a first come first based service. But they would pay a $2 per session fee to cover their costs. Anyhow, this was all established. We get it in July of 2019. We turned it on, and it's been running ever since. We have 2 stations that are operational. We've never had any problem with them. And MCE gave us a $5,000 credit, or gave us $5,000 check to cover over half of the cost of the installation. The final cost of the unit was let's see, I think it was 4,000. Got it here somewhere. $4,450, and that's where we stand. Any questions? Yes. Yes, we took 2 parking spaces and in a single tower with 2 charging stations on it. It's connected. This was a bit of a nightmare, but it started out that everything went very smoothly. We got right to the very end. The electrician finished everything. PG&E came out to approve it. They've been watching the whole installation during this process. They came out to improve it. The guy was ready to sign it, and some new guy showed up who was from another department in PG&E, and he said, "You can't do that." Absolutely not. Tear it all out. And so 4 or 5 months went by. I had to put a claim into PG&E. Anyhow, it turned out that everything worked out, and but we had to use the mutual power rather than we had our own meter, but we had to go to a mutual meter because they wouldn't let us connect our meter. But we worked it out, so it's fine. Yes. So the setup, I have a complete. I can go over this in detail with you, but basically the setup is everybody gets a chance to park in those 2 spots, even if they don't have an EV. They can park there for 3 hours a day, and anybody can charge for 3 hours a day. But the members get assigned spots. They have priority, so they have a certain number of spots that they can use, and then the people who want to be casual users, they can just go when there's an opening, or if they want to just park their car there, they can do it for 3 hours too. But we don't have that much usage, and we have a lot of parking spots up in that mutual, and it's not been a problem at all. So it's not been an issue. I would like the people to understand that this is possible to do. I mean, you can the best way to do it is gather a few people. As you see more and more cars being sold, I mean, the more and more EVs being sold in the area, a few people can get together and put in a station. I mean, as far as working it out, that's not that big of a problem. But the issues are, where you're going to connect and talking your mutual into putting power in. But one thing that the most important thing to understand is PG&E will likely tell you that you don't have enough power to do it, but there's such a thing as load sharing, and they've now officially accepted, and the Walnut Creek also accepts, and that gives you the ability to take a meter and divide it up.
And if
For
people
instance-
are interested in this, they could contact you.
I'm sorry?
If people are interested in pursuing this, they could contact you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Your
think-
voice is fading, and I think I want to make a different point.
Oh, sure.
But I don't know, I want to cut you off if somebody in the audience is waiting to ask you a question.
Okay.
It can be much simpler. So we're describing a couple of situations which worked for people, and they had certain needs for driving, but it can be a whole lot simpler. So without having, just having a carport, not having enough power in the carport to charge there, and using the level 2 chargers in Rossmoor, and occasionally using the fast charger at the shopping center. If you don't do a lot of driving, you can make that work. So the other thing I want to tell people, because it took me a while, even when I had my EV, you don't think about getting it down to low and then filling it up like you do a gas car. It's the reverse. You top it up every time you can. So if you have just been out to the grocery store and back, you connect it, you can set it so it'll start at midnight, and it'll charge as long as it needs to reach. So every morning you start out, that's if you happen to have access at home. But you can do the same when you go to a movie at Peacock, or you can do the same when you go to the gym. And you can just, if you go to the gym often, or you go to a movie often, or if you're down here for meetings very often, you can be charging up every time you go. And when it gets low because you didn't go to very many meetings that week, or you hurt your ankle and you couldn't go to the gym, then you go to the fast charger. And you spend a little more time there, and you shop or go to the dry cleaners or whatever while you're over there, and you fast charge it. So it doesn't require having the charging at home. So I want to reverse what Annika said. She mentioned charging at home works for most people, and you use the fast charger for road trips. I would say it's just the opposite if you're in Rossmoor. If you're a person who can't charge at home because you have a carport only and the carport doesn't even have enough power, then you use the level 2 charges when you're near one of the places and have an activity. And otherwise, you don't use the fast charger for road trips. You use it every time you want to charge up. So every time you go to Safeway or you go CVS or wherever you're going there, you keep topping up each time. So I just want to put that in because it takes a little while to wrap your head around that if you've been always waiting till you get your tank gets low and then filling it up all at once.
So I wanted to say something.
Okay.
I just bought an EV last December. I live in Mutual One. I do not have any charging capability in where I live. So I have been using, and I also want to say, if you put in one of those chargers, that's a level 1, which means it takes all night to charge your car. It isn't like you can do it in an hour and a half. And and that is true of the level 2 chargers too. I use it when I go down to play bridge, but I get 30 or 40 miles when I do that. It doesn't begin to fill up my Chevy Bolt, which is 250 miles. It is true that the fast chargers over at Safeway are fabulous. However,
there are usually 3 or 4 cars waiting to use the chargers now. And that's just been a change in the last month, that they are not available. And even if you go at 7 o'clock at night, there are a pile of people waiting to use them. So that's not a totally easy way to do things. It's been challenging for me. One of the challenging things is that Rossmoor allows non-EV charging cars to use the charger to park in the parking area down at Gateway. So you can arrive, and if you're lucky, you'll find 1 or 2 empty spots. The other day I went and the chargers weren't working. So it's a little bit, it isn't like the easiest thing I've ever done to keep my car powered. I also want to say that Brad talked about how much energy you use in driving. That is if you do not ever use air conditioning or heating. They eat up the miles. So that, and I didn't realize that at all. And of course, around here in the summertime, we really want to use the AC. So now I drive a lot with all the windows down. But I have managed, when you point to the increased number of cars coming into Rossmoor, it's going to be very difficult to do this in a couple of years from now. Right now, I can manage and juggle and find time. It is also true that the level 3 chargers over at Safeway, when the sun is shining on them in the morning, they have glass screens. Those become unusable because they get overheated, and then you can't charge. So, it's not the simplest thing I've ever tried to do. I haven't, well, I noticed that there were, oh, repeat the question. What about the one down at Texaco on the corner? When I drove by yesterday afternoon, there were 2 cars there. So for a while, nobody was using it. Now everybody's using it. There is also another one over at Whole Foods in Lafayette. And people come in and use that who are using 124 to get in town. So they stop and charge up there. So that one's not always available either. It's sort of catch as catch can. And I would say during commuting hours, it's probably worse.
There is one more place, is downtown on Broadway Plaza on the top of the big garage, the huge one by Newell. There's on the roof, there's quite a, I can't remember how many, but there's charging stations there.
Isn't that a Tesla?
No, I had saw somebody with a VW charging.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Also remember that Tesla is going to open up the charging stations to everybody. And you'll need converter plugs, but that's going to make a big difference.
So if you go down and go to the movies for 2 hours, you'd get about 20, 25 miles on your car. Yeah.
Some more. The amount of charge that your car can accept per hour varies on the species of car. It's not on what the charger provides. So how fast it will charge, and if you go to a 2-hour movie, how many miles you've just added to your car is going to vary depending on the car. So that's
Okay,
something to add.
Thanks, Carol. And while I might walk the microphone back to the back row, and let me just underscore that one of the things that this shows you is that, buying and living with an EV, is a whole different ball of wax than gas powered car, and so every one of us is going to approach it a little bit differently. It's almost like we are given or we buy a jigsaw puzzle, and we're going to put it together differently, each of us, right? But would any of us give up our EVs and go back to gas powered? No. Not a chance in hell. Never.
I have a question for the woman who in Mutual One who just was speaking. Is it that the Mutual will not allow you to put in a charger, an outlet that would be used as a charger, either in your carport, or that you choose not to put it in or use it that way?
I haven't talked to the mutual, so I don't know. I was the only EV car there, so I didn't explore it, but recently somebody 2 stalls away from me got a Tesla. So, and I was going to talk to him and see what mutual one had to say. But at this point, I don't know.
Yeah, no, we're almost done. Okay, you want to take it away?
I think so. So, Laura Lee, Brad tells me that you would be understanding of not speaking tonight. You're okay? Okay, thank you. So I want to thank people, especially the ones who stayed the entire time. This is unusual for us. We usually try to end right at 8:30, but there was a lot of interest and a lot of information. We will provide both the slides from tonight and this recording. Hopefully it'll come through, the audio will come through well. I'll check it out once it's converted over, and we'll send it out in the next few days to everybody who's a member of Sustainable Rossmoor. And then as far as people who are interested in organizing in some way to discuss problems and solving things on EVs, you're welcome to contact me and we can organize something. We do have an EV charging committee, and we want to promote sustainable practices. So if there's a need there, we could help put something together for that. So I want to thank everyone for coming. And I'm sorry, Dave, you have a question? Well, we're in transition right now. It's probably going to be at the club room. But we have to check to make sure that all the audio stuff will work there. But I think it'll be in the club room.
Can I make one quick comment? That is,
go ahead, Brad.
I think now that we've gone through an overview on the nuances and the challenges of charging in Rossmoor, and that's you now see why it's all the more important that you take Adrian up and get down to the planning committee meeting on Thursday, or at least send him an email. And so, Barry, can we send that out as an email blast?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks.
We'll send out a blast to everyone. Try to do that tomorrow. Okay, thank you all.